Very much so. Yeah. No, that's a big problem. And it's not like we escape the costs by any means. That is a big deal because you're going to have either sick people out of control in your community, or you're gonna, and that has carries its own cost of disrupted lives and financial stuff, or you're gonna have the cost of providing some kind of treatment. So there's really no escape from paying that bill one way or the other. It's gonna negatively impact people, or you're gonna have to pony up and do something about it. And I did want to just mention, because referencing back the idea that the whole insurance thing, that's, I think, part of where the psychiatrists just push pills comes from, because a lot of times that's all insurance will pay for is, look, are you prescribing something or not? Because we'll pay for that. But what do you do? You're just talking to people? That's too expensive. We're not covering that. Yeah. So that leads us to this situation where the public perception is now, they're just a bunch of greedy pill pushers. And it's like, well, that's kind of all they're allowed to do in a lot of cases.
It's funny that you bring that up. I
Yeah.
just had in my group, I do them Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I think it was last Thursday that a lady who's had a lot of traumas in her life, I mean, the worst kind you can imagine, continuously for the first 30 years of her life, and she's 70 now. When she was trying to get help and there was insurance, they said, yes, we'll cover $500. Now, today, that means about 3 sessions.
Yeah.
But mental illness is a lifelong disease, and you can't do much in 3 sessions because it takes 2 or 3 sessions to figure out if you got the right psychiatrist and if you're a match.
Yeah.
So,
and if they're the right psychiatrist, it takes them twice as long again to just get to know you and figure out what is a problem and what isn't. Longer still to figure out what are the biggest problems that we feel we can actually do something about, which is not the same thing as what is the actual biggest problem. Sometimes you got to work up to that. And then you got to check in regularly to say, how's the progress going on addressing these things based on how we've discussed it and strategies that have been suggested. You got to try some things that don't work. You try some other things. You refine the plans. It's a whole thing. Like, and speaking of which too, this whole, and we should probably get to it soon, but the dream thing I do, this is not actual dream analysis, Jungian style or Freudian style even, or by any style. Like if you brought in a serious dream that had real meaning to you and you and the psychologist decided together, we should look at this and figure out why it was so intense and disturbing and what it relates to in my life. Just talking about one dream could take weeks. And that's not even getting into anything else about your entire life. It's like it is a very intensive process. And I mean, if you got, as you were saying, if you got the money for it, I think it's usually worth it to do these kind of things. If you don't, it's probably still worth it. You just don't have access to it. You just don't have that kind of opportunity to draw that kind of benefit. That's my comment on my process. My process is very kind of ad hoc, my own method. We try and pack it into a show. I try and give people something useful, but it's not the real in-depth analysis that would be the best possible for a particular client. I don't know if you had any comments about all that.
I know nothing about dreams. Like everybody else, or most everybody else, I dream, and I tend to dream the same type of dream over and over and over again. And I'll have multiple dreams each night, but I don't know anything about what they mean.
Oh, yeah.
And no therapist of mine has ever brought it up.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different ball game on that respect to me.
For sure. It's not something that every therapist feels they have a good grip on, and like mostly if you are specifically a Jungian psychotherapist or Freudian psychotherapist, doing psychoanalysis, those traditions or schools of learning and theory have built into them an understanding of where dreams fit into these different processes. Most cognitive behavioral therapy has nothing to do with that. They don't get into it at all. And, you know, I was not ever specifically trained in this myself either. I'm not a Jungian. I'm not a Freudian psychoanalyst. I just kind of have a knack for talking to people about what they experienced and drawing connections. I've got a little, so I've got my own mental health conditions of diagnosed autistic. So I'm trying to make my superpower work for me. This weird ability to connect the dots in some abstract ways. So as you were saying, you don't have, say, maybe a good understanding of how dreams fit in. I think one of the best ways is, you know, watch my episodes. I've got 140 of them at this point. But also going through the process and kind of feeling your way through it with me and seeing how we put something together that makes sense. And you go, that's how it works. It's okay. I get it. Just doing it with me, I think will give you a pretty good idea. You feel like you're ready to get into that? I don't know if you need a break or anything.
Sure.